Okay, perfect. So how do we want to wait a little bit before we begin?
Let's just let you talk so everyone thinks that Elon's in this his parody account. So when anyone jumps
You're
in,
fine.
they'll think it's actually him.
Yeah, I think while we wait for the room to fill up, could you explain, like who you are, what you do, like give us some background, like who is
I
Texas Lindsay?
also have I'm I'm having a little bit of a psychological issue with this. You do sound so much like him, even though I know you're not. But first I wanted to know what time it is where you are, Adrian. Aren't you in a completely different time zone than Texas?
Oh yeah, but I manage. I like to kind of keep this one so like somewhat personally hidden, but eventually people will know.
Is it daytime or nighttime where you are?
Afternoon,
Afternoon. Okay. Well, that sounds maybe like you're just on the West Coast or something.
something like that.
Or you could be on the other side of the world. I won't try to figure this out. I don't wanna dox you and find out that you are really Elon. Just kidding. Okay, so I am a full-time journalist now, and, I started using my Twitter. It was a Twitter account when I started using it in 2022 to help, combat censorship, advocate for free speech, and help get important stories out that were not being covered by the mainstream media because I felt like I couldn't keep doing my corporate job while I was watching our country slowly slip into a state of censorship and tyranny in a way. Because if you don't have free speech, you eventually don't have human rights, you don't have a voice, and then you just have to be subjected to whatever they approve for you to say. So I abandoned my corporate career and decided to pursue journalism full time.
Nice,
Are you
nice.
there, Adrian?
And and when did you first come to X? Was it back then when it was still Twitter?
Yeah, so I started my account when I was in college, and there was more than one Lindsay among among my friend group, so everybody called me Texas. So my handle for my first and last name wasn't available when I started my Twitter account, so I decided to just use Texas Lindsay as my handle. So that's how that came about. But yeah, I started using my account. I didn't tweet ever, not once until 2022 when I realized that Facebook and Instagram were censoring hashtags like natural immunity, which is still censored on Instagram today. Like if you click on the hashtag for natural immunity, it you cannot pull up anything. It says that this hashtag is um, been blocked or whatever because of misinformation or something like that. I haven't checked this month, but I think I did check last month and it was still blocked. So you can type in the words and search that, but the hashtag itself, like if it's under someone's picture or something, you can't pull up anything for that. So it was just the most absurd time. So I deactivated my Facebook, stopped using Instagram, and just I saw an interview actually with Elon and the Babylon Bee. And I think it was like December 2021. And Elon was explaining why he loved Twitter so much. And he was like, it's the only place you could go on there and connect with like a CEO or a world leader or anything and just instantly be able to tag them and communicate with them. So and of course he talked about the memes and how funny that was, but I thought it was just a different take on it and I had never really used it at all. So I that interview kinda, like, stuck in my mind until, early 2022 when I decided to abandon all the Meta apps and, start using Twitter to try to, advocate for free speech and informed consent and, help people share stories that, were important and need to get out.
That's quite awesome. And politically, so I mean, you're kind of trying to cover more scientific content. right? Or like, how did you get into what you're doing now? Because I see it's a little bit more political, but I think your main aim is like trying to understand what reality looks like and trying to report on that. So like actual journalism, right?
Yeah, I've done a few investigative pieces. I got invited to help cover the Twitter files and go to Twitter headquarters um, in early 2023 with Paul Thacker. So that was definitely interesting getting to see all the inner workings of Twitter before it became X and how all of these people wanting true statements taken down and censored and all of that. So that was definitely fascinating. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes back to a political spectrum of what if they're going to try to outlaw speech or certain speech, hate speech. You have to have some footing in the political realm in order to advocate for some of these things. You at least have to have knowledge of it. I am a little frustrated lately. Like the things that seem to go the most viral are just like silly things, like Biden turning around and facing his back and having all the 3 people around him slowly turn and face the other direction, like, that can get like, huge reach, but my articles that about the important stories about people that, need help and that need, Congress to act to remove, like, the COVID-19 vaccine mandate that they're requiring for all legal citizens to come in, that that only has, I think, around 400,000 views so far, but you can post a meme or something and people will get like, 20 million views. So that's a little frustrating as a journalist. So there still needs, I think, some tweaking to the algorithm, or I guess a way for me to figure out how to pivot to, make people understand in a simpler way. So just trying to navigate that on X, I think is critical because if you put all this time and effort into stories and work, but nobody sees it, then it doesn't really take off. But the last story I wrote about the man who is an American citizen who is stranded in Japan. He's been there on a student and then later work visa and married his wife there. And they have 2 daughters, and he wants to come home, and his visa expires next year. And they can't come in unless his wife gets another COVID-19 shot in the last 12 months. She doesn't need it. She doesn't want it. And because they're now fully aware of all the risks involved with that. So, um, it's a tricky issue, but as a journalist, if you don't have any knowledge of what is going on in politics and what bills are drafted and what is, the best way to share the story to help, make that change. So there's a slight, I guess, activism role in that as well, just to help, you know, the human rights of someone who doesn't want to get a certain drug, whatever that might be, and they're being forced to get it when they're following all the rules just to come home. Like, luckily, his daughters are American and Japanese citizenship. They have both, so they don't have to get that because they removed that requirement finally. But his wife can't come with him without getting that, and so it's just some crazy times for sure. But yeah, I'm try to stay somewhat neutral. I do give the Biden admin a hard time because a lot of their policies and things I find them outrageous when my politics are aligned with the Constitution. I believe in free speech. I believe that the FBI, CIA, all law officers should get a warrant before they search your phone records and your email records. Like, I think, I it's pretty straightforward. I believe in freedom and liberty, and I support any politician on the right or left that wants to uphold the Constitution and not take away our freedoms and rights. So
So like definitely centered more around ideals than politics. That's cool. I like that very much.
I think principles are important, and it's hard to find politicians that adhere to principles. A lot of them, I don't engage in the tribalism aspect of it. So, oh, there's your fortune cookie tweet right there. Stand firm in your principles. Yeah, I think, adhering to principles is everything. If you can do that, you'll always know what direction you're going in, and you have to start somewhere. Some people don't believe in the Constitution. Some people don't believe in the First Amendment, and they'll hopefully they'll stick to what they believe in and pursue that. But I think our Constitution here in the United States has done us well for hundreds of years, and I would like to see it continue to be upheld and um, that because every time we give away an inch, we're never going to get that inch back. And slowly and surely, if they pass any laws against like hate speech, then that completely defeats the whole purpose of free speech. People are should be allowed in any society, I think, to say how they feel and what they think, even if I don't agree with it or don't like it. Like, there's a lot of people that say awful things, but the second you start making laws like that, it's a slippery slope, and it hurts everybody everywhere at the end of the day, except for the people in power.
It's true because like it's things, for instance, where you have to speak a legitimate truth, but the answer to this question, which is the truth, is not, it can be dissatisfactory when you think of it. And there's always an issue. And so ignorance takes over and they say we cannot have this truth be put out there because it's negative towards a certain, say, thing that is established, right? So it's it's like a hunting after the truth via policy, and that's an issue. Everything else is it's yeah, but this is definitely a limitation. You ought to be able to say the truth, not suffer from the fact that it's not a truth about you, it's a truth about the world.
Exactly. Because once you start going down that road, it will never end, and you eventually will not be able to say anything at all. So, as much as I don't like reading some hateful things that people say, it's much safer if people can tell exactly how they feel, so you know where they stand. Like, I know that that person hates so and so or such and such, but if they're since they're not able to say that, you don't know how awful of a person they are.
True, true.
I think there's benefits to letting people express how they feel, and I think that's safer versus you have everyone lying or not being able to show the world who they really are, and that can be actually, I think, more dangerous in the long run. But there's that, and like watching people that suffered from vaccine injuries, and that was their story and what their reality was, and watching before Elon bought, they would I remember one girl, her, fiancé died, like, the day after he got his COVID shot, and she told this story, and they completely suspended her account, not once, but twice. I don't even know where her account is now. I can't remember what her handle was, but, she was not alone. That happened to so many people. There was one Facebook group with hundreds of thousands of people in there that were sharing their stories, trying to get help and figure out answers, and Facebook completely just removed it, and these people had nowhere to connect with these people and find community. When people are suffering and they can't express their suffering, it just adds on to further suffering and makes their misery worse, and it's led censorship. Because of that, censorship has led to suicides and everything else, because if you were so helpless and you're trying to scream from the top of the mountain and nobody can hear you, it's just an awful, awful thing, and I just couldn't sit idly by and not try to do something and advocate for people to be able to um, share their stories, their truth. I mean, it just they were so worried about causing vaccine hesitancy that it backfired, and now I think that that's like at an all-time high, because they don't trust the people that are telling them that it was safe, because they were censoring people and lying to people about things. So it's just a slippery slope. But I saw, Yvonne, you have your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Oh my goodness, yes, I was gonna wait for you're so sweet, I was gonna wait for Adrian to finish his question, but I guess I'll just jump in. I just wanna say thanks so much for your time for doing this and Adrian for hosting. I mean, this is such an important space. I know there are a lot of new creators on X, a lot of people that are getting into citizen journalism. And I love everything that you shared about the censorship in regards to some of the health stuff, because I myself I had the same thing. I'm not even a political person, but not feeling like I could even, talk about vitamin D, I mean, was just absolutely crazy. So what you've done and what you're doing definitely makes a difference, and all of us are feeling the effects of that. And something I was curious about is on your journey, because with new people wanting to get into the journalism and you not having done that before, are there some things like obstacles or challenges that you faced that were very surprising to you that maybe you could give a little, insight to some new people and in that pathway if they wanted to do that, that could help them be better prepared from your journey that you learned? That'd be amazing.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. If you want to go into journalism, you just have to be prepared to be very, very poor. If I'm being honest, it's not. This is not a job that pays well at all. I feel like I'm a struggling artist, even though I'm not making art. I'm writing and sharing stories. Um, so I think the financial aspect I was not really prepared for, because I left a very, very lucrative job, and I was able to live off savings for a while, but it didn't last for long. But it's such a rewarding thing to be able to tell your truth and other people's truths without fear of um someone telling you that can't go to print or an editor, and just being able to directly deliver stories directly to people, I think is worth everything that I've had to sacrifice in order to do this to help people. So um that 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 I think one of the other challenges is s- adhering to your principles as much as you can, and not selling out in any way, which is I've had to turn down some really awesome opportunities, but I never wanted to have somebody tell me what I could or could not tweet, or what I could or could not um, write about. So, and I think it will all work out in the long run. But it's definitely a sacrifice that you have to make when you branch off and do this independently. Some people are able to do it and are very successful at it. I'm still trying to navigate that aspect and figure that out. So, Adrian, did you want to control the panel and the questions, or did you want me to?
Okay,
Because I
yeah,
saw
but
out.
okay, so Alex will go to you and then we'll go to Wiggle because he has a few questions for you as well. He's essentially like kind of the partner in the show. We could do this as well. So what we do here is this is going to be a recurring thing, Creators of X, where we feature prominent creators who have, contributed to massive amounts of value to the platform, or who are somewhat always spoken of, but nobody really understands what they do, or at least they want an understanding of that person in some way. So we get them in here and we make a show about them. Wiggle kind of does a similar thing. He interviews other people on various topics as well. His is called The Open Life, which is kind of inspired by the open forum that we used to host. And so I do Creators of X to basically talk about the X side of things, and Wiggle talks about the person side of things. So that's how we kind of complement that. But first, I'll go to Alex Utopia, ask that question, and then we'll get to Wiggle and continue.
Yeah, thank you for bringing me up. And I just wanted to quickly say that I really feel what you guys were talking about just now, right? As some of you might know or not know, I had problems and run-ins with the social media companies and the state in 2020 because I had an opinion, right? And people didn't really like that. And I think I hesitate sometimes to talk about it because I don't want it to be about left and right or who was wrong. But I think there are some things we should all be on one page about. And I mean, I was suspended and punished by Facebook for publishing scientific peer-reviewed papers, right? And I think that is a place in the West we do not want to go to. We cannot have these people deciding what valid science is, for example, right? And free speech is really important because of that. We have seen what happens if we can't talk about this, because then it occurred to me that, whoa, I have this huge Facebook following here, but now it's gone, right? And now I can, my voice is well gone, right? And that's a place we don't want to be in. So I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Alex. Yeah, that's true. I didn't, it's crazy. The British Medical Journal actually um d- did an investigation because a Pfizer whistleblower came forward for the clinical trials here in Texas, and she was saying that there's fraud involved in the trials, and she tried to alert them. And when she alerted them and she alerted the FDA, they fired her the same day. And she has 20 years of clinical trial experience. And she was overseeing multiple sites in Texas for the clinical trials in 2020. So she blew the whistle, and the BMJ came in and did an investigation of all her claims and investigated everything that she brought up and was able to validate and verify her claims. In the article for the BMJ, when it was shared on Facebook, they labeled it as misinformation. It was a peer-reviewed article verifying a clinical trial whistleblower's claims, and they censored it. And then when the BMJ wrote an article about Facebook censoring the peer-reviewed article. I mean, BMJ is one of the um, most popular and well-known medical journals in the world. They even censored the article about the censorship, and I'm not making this up. We were in some crazy, crazy times, but most people have never even heard of her case. It does not get covered by the news media at all. Reuters Legal, they've never covered it either. It's hard to find. So that's one of the cases that I've been covering for years now, and it is still going through the litigation process. Pfizer's trying to get it dismissed, but that case could upend if it's won. It could upend and remove the immunity liability that's protecting Pfizer from being sued for vaccine harm. So it's like there's hope out there for anyone that was vaccine injured as a result of the fraud that occurred in the trials. And it's the only case that could upend the immunity liability where people can sue if they have outrageous medical bills, which there are a lot of people out there now, or people that lost. One of them was in the space. I saw him a minute ago. I don't know if he's still in here, but Ernest lost his young teenage son to myocarditis shortly after his COVID shot. There's a lot of people have were harmed. There are some people that have gotten multiple, never were harmed at all, and are just fine. It affected people differently, but if they were harmed as a result of them covering up side effects and not logging information correctly and unblinding the study early, all of those things are wrong, and people should be able to seek justice and have a pathway to do so. So that her case is really, really important. But the censorship of Facebook on that was fascinating. But then again, Twitter in 2022, there was a peer-reviewed article that was shared on here, and I'll never forget. Dr. Andrew Boston, shared it, and it was about how sperm count was reduced in the men in the study that they studied that after their COVID-19 vaccine. Now the study said that it eventually, like, they returned to normal levels, I believe, but that his account, he got locked out and suspended for sharing. It was a peer-reviewed article. It is absolutely insane that we were living in a time where a peer-reviewed study could get censored on every single social media platform. How are people ever supposed to trust anything or find any information anywhere if it's just an inconvenient truth and you're not allowed to share those? So it's such a godsend that Elon bought this platform, because I think it would have just continued to get worse and worse and worse if he hadn't. And I know there are some people will call me names and other people names for supporting Elon, and I couldn't disagree with them more. I wouldn't have my platform if he hadn't bought it. And I'm so grateful for that. So I think this is one of the most important platforms in the world for advocating and sharing even the most inconvenient truths need to be told.
Wiggle, you may proceed.
Hey, Lindsay, great to have you Can you talk a little bit about your Substack? Like, what inspired you to start it? You mentioned you became active on X around the same time, 2022. It appears you stopped publishing on Substack in 2023. Are you primarily on X now? And do you still do long form articles or plan to?
Hi, Wiggle. Yes, thank you for that. So I just published an article on there. I published about 3 articles over the last 2 weeks on there. I guess I need to change my layout. So when you go there, I think it just has like the most shared at the top instead of the most recent. So, but no, I'm still publishing on there. I was trying to move everything over to X after Elon bought it just to try to have everything in one place, but Substack does bring in income for me that X doesn't, and it can be more substantial at times. And I'm trying to um, make enough money just to survive right now, so that's an important aspect. So I have Substack and I have X, and those are my two sources. I don't use YouTube. I don't use Facebook. I don't use Instagram. I don't use any platform that is pro censorship. So I know I could probably reach a lot more people if I did share on those other places, but I just don't. That just goes against my principles and my beliefs. So so that's one part of your question. What was the other aspect that you asked?
Yeah, like, well, I mean, you kind of covered both parts with the long form and the evolution of your Substack. And
Oh, I can explain that.
yeah,
That why I started that. In 2022. I started making like 1-minute video clips. So it's not an article form or anything, but I was trying to figure out a way to show what I think Ed Dowd is the first person who pointed out in the United States that excess mortality seemed to be going up as more COVID vaccines. There was a higher uptake in COVID vaccines, and so I thought, well, if that's happening here in the U.S., I wonder if it's happening anywhere else. And I could not believe what I saw, and I ended up making over 50 videos around the world of, I mean, over 50 countries, videos of their rollout and showing in every single country as the vaccine uptake increased, so did the excess mortality. And just this week, the Telegraph published a front page article about the newest BMJ study or article of scientists saying that they believe that the COVID-19 vaccines actually did contribute to an increase in excess mortality. So I actually that my videos got shared by the Epic Times and a few other places, and doctors from Harvard and Stanford and Yale and um, oh gosh, there's several different colleges reached out to me um, to talk about my video clips because it was quite alarming. And some people thought I had some epidemiology degree, which I did not. I just was showing the data from Our World in Data, which actually is funded by Bill Gates, ironically. But that the best way to when you're in a world of censorship, you can't just come out and say this is happening. But if you can show it on a graph, so I made like moving graphs that showed the dates and the increase and over time and what was happening. And I didn't add any conclusions or say that causation or correlation here is a definite factor. I was just presenting the data in a journalistic way, a journalistic art form. And I kept getting requests from people to put them in one place. So I started the Substack so I could embed the videos for that. Sorry, that was a long answer, but
no, that's awesome. And how your X account, how your Substack publications influenced your X account? Did you feel any correlations between your account, like growth of X with the Substack, or you kind of just let them flow and they kind of took a natural path?
Yeah, so I use X primarily for everything, but when I have long form content, I'll use my Substack, or if I need to put like a bunch of different things that I've done all in one place, I can do that. But now it's more difficult to do that because you can't embed X posts into Substack because there was a slight rift between um, Elon and Substack because Substack was considering, or not, Substack was pulling all this data from X after Elon bought it, and they were trying to build their own version of Twitter with data from X, and Elon did not like that, which who would if you bought a company for $44 billion and another company's coming in trying to use all of your data um, and information from your company to kind of build their own. So there was, a conflict there, and that's when um, Elon, I think, changed the algorithm to, not show the thumbnail for Substacks, and Substack made it where you can't embed X posts into their articles. So I think that is still going on right now. Last time I tried to do that, to embed a a tweet or post in an article, it doesn't show. You have to do a screenshot and link it that way. So that's kind of a bummer because all the other big mainstream outlets can still embed um, posts into their articles. So I'm hoping that changes one day. I don't know, but but yeah, I Substack doesn't really feed into my X account, but my X account I think feeds into my Substack, if that makes sense.
And how do you because certain articles of your Substack are behind paywall and some are not. What is the differentiator between what is open and what is paid content?
So sometimes it's just I try to provide exclusive stuff for my paid subscribers on Substack, so that they get um, a perk of paying to support my work and efforts. When I spend, sometimes I'll spend hours, days working on a video, or weeks working on an article, putting together an article, and um, investigating whatever the topic is. If I put a lot of time and effort into it, and I want to offer that to my paid subscribers instead of just open in general for free. 'Cause if I didn't put a paywall up, I don't think I would have the monetary support that I'm able to get on Substack like I do now.
Yeah, it's really interesting you saying that it's actually like better than X ad revenue. I'm really surprised with your account size of X that like Substack
Yeah.
is that much significant?
Um, well, so Substack, if somebody like buys, they can buy like an annual subscription, which is like $55. You can't be an annual subscriber and make, on X. So like when somebody subscribes, it's $4, and I think they pay that out like once a month for my subscriptions on here. My monetization, like I only made like $300 for the past 2 weeks for my account. So I can't really live off of $300, but my Substack, if I have 10 people buy an annual subscription, that's $550 right there just with 10 people. So it's um and people can also do a founding subscription. So there's like different like levels and tiers. And it's more predictable too, for income. As far as monetization, you never know, what your amount's gonna be, if it's gonna be like $5 or $300 for the ad thing, 'cause there's not, a lot of transparency there yet for how that works and how it pays out.
Yeah, I'm really surprised like with what like with your ad rev numbers, like with that with a count of that size, it almost I'm really puzzled, but I guess it's different geographies and it just different types of ad rev that is accounted for views.
Yeah, I would love to understand that. I don't like to complain too much about things like that. 'Cause nobody wants to follow somebody that's always complaining about things that affect them only. I try to only complain about things that are affecting people collectively because I think that's a better approach. But yeah, I've not been able to figure it out yet. Like why somebody with like 10,000 followers will get like, $1,000 and I'll get 200. I don't understand it. And I gave up trying because it just is, I don't know the
Yeah,
answer.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think I think it's kind of a keyword issue as well. It doesn't seem to be entirely dependent upon impressions as it is on comments and the nature of those comments. So you can make any kind of content whatsoever. It's mainly the kind of content that gets people to add to the initial piece. So like say for instance I make a statement about anything and then people have something that they can actually add. Then they add something to it and there's many people of different types of opinions, which then leads to obviously more comments. And it's also interesting what type of content it is that they're adding to, because then the type of comments themselves determines what kind of ads get shown. Because a lot of ads are actually structured as if they were posts. So they look like posts. So whenever you're scrolling, for instance, to the replies and you see an ad, the ad has to blend in with the environment itself. So there are a lot of factors which are making this. It's really difficult, and I think it's nigh impossible to actually mine ad revenue other than post a shit ton, but that's not a good strategy either because then your impressions are low and your reach is low because you're essentially diluting orange juice. That's what I've seen a lot of people do. And other times, like, I mean, when I see, for instance, with you, you have extremely low posting frequency, so that could also be an issue. I like to look at the number of comments as well.
I took my first vacation ever. I got invited on an all expense paid trip for 4 days.
Nice.
So that's why my posts are not frequent lately. But yeah, so I normally post too much, so especially my replies. But yeah, um, there's definitely a science to it. But I don't like to like self-censor and stay away from certain
Hmm.
words when I'm covering something. And then the other thing is, it seems like if you post controversial stuff, everybody wants to comment and weigh in. And I really try not to do that. Just try to avoid as much as possible. So yeah, it's tricky, and I look at it as a perk whenever I do get ad revenue, and I've just kind of given up on trying to figure that out because I don't want to change my style or my goal of whatever my story is in order to try to turn it into comment clickbait.
Oh, of
So
course. Yeah. I mean, it's also interesting because a lot of the clickbaity stuff doesn't actually perform as well. Because again, like I said, it depends on the nature of the reply itself that changes the way that a post behaves. Because there has to be some inferencing done. And I think that's actually going to improve with a switch in the algorithm to something that's more AI based, because then it can actually get what it's all about and see if context is artificial. Because you can also do artificial pumping. Like, for instance, there's this huge new trend that's come out where people just do threads and they do this, here's 10 things I've learned about X, Y, and Z. And so they keep
oh,
manipulating
I'm
the
so tired
algorithm
of
by
those.
just pumping that. So they have like certain accounts and they pay into each other and they actually quote post this or do whatever, right? They try to like pod group it and then it has this initial spike. And then because this is done so frequently, the algorithm itself actually looks at this as a trend. And then when you do something like this, it's almost like if you have a specific super trending hashtag, it just elevates the post by default just by the way it is written because it has a certain structure to it, right? Certain wording. That's also why engagement farms work, right? Well, at least they will not work in the future, but they function in a similar fashion. This is a very elaborate engagement farm. But yeah, Yvonne?
Yeah, awesome. I was curious, how do you find your news, like your new news, right? Like, I know a lot of people, I mean, everything's happening so fast on X all the time. And I'm sure that there are probably some things that you have articles maybe pre-prepared or something that you want to discuss. But I've noticed a lot of times, we get it here, it's on mainstream media, but it's way quicker here. Like, do you have any way that like a methodology of how you go about finding like the next thing or the topic of something you wanna discuss? I'd love to hear a little bit more about your process.
Um, so my pinned post, for example, I had one of somebody subscribed to me and he reached out and shared his story. So sometimes I'll come across like somebody will just share like a screenshot of something that someone posted on Facebook or something, and I haven't deleted my Facebook app. I'll reactivate my Facebook and reach out to the person and interview them and ask some questions. So it's really kind of organic. I don't have like a method of how I come about these stories, but I I do subscribe to like one DC outlet that will post breaking news, like, and they send it in a text, then it comes out there before it comes out anywhere else. So it's like just like AP breaks stories exclusively to news outlets around the world. They do it in a similar way. So there are resources like that where you can get breaking stories exclusively sent to your phone, and then you break them on X. I've tried to pin um, my favorite or important posts on my highlights. So like some important threads that I've written and um different various things. I try to post the important stuff on my highlights so that that's all in one place and not just random content. But I also try to break up my feed where it's not all heavy serious stuff and try to throw in some lighthearted things so that it's not too painful to read all these heartbreaking stories all the time. So I hope that answers your question, Yvonne.
Yeah, amazing. If you don't mind, I'm gonna jump back in, and I was just thinking, I'm sure along your journey, because hearing how other people have reached out to you, I absolutely love that that's happening, and then you end up finding something, you're able to share their story, because a lot of people, you know, uh, don't have the writing ability, or maybe they're just nervous about it, or they don't have the platform. But you being able to do what you're doing, other people whose stories might not have been told, you're able to tell them from them reaching out to you with that organic. And I just absolutely love that. And I was curious, have you had any experiences? I mean, I can only imagine if it hasn't happened that that's going to, where from something that you shared of someone's story like that, I mean, some of these things can really change people's lives. Have you had any kind of effect like that where someone mentioned something like that to you?
Yeah, so what in 1 week, some crazy things happen actually. One of them I can't talk about yet, but it's a really, really exciting revelation. But until it progresses in the legal process, I can't talk about it yet, but I'm very, very excited about that. I'm also sitting on some other stories that are also I'm going to be able to tell and have the exclusive on, but I can't break them yet because of out of respect for the source and the impacting, a current litigation process. So I have more stuff coming and it's in the queue right now. But um in 1 week, I help cover or shine a light on what happened to this one documentary filmmaker who Bank of America um, debanked her because she was doing a film about exposing the FBI kidnapping story with Governor Whitmer and how that was how they set up these people and basically, what is it called? When the I can't think of the term for it off the top of my head. Entrapment. They entrapped these guys and set them up in this blackmail scheme, and she made a documentary about it. Well, somehow, some way or another, um, she went to the bank, wasn't able to deposit her a check that she received for her film, um, funding for her film, and they asked her what she did. And later that day, they found out that the risk department decided to terminate her account. She never had a late payment, none of these other issues, and but they found out that it was her bank account was being used for this film that she was making, and they froze her funds. She couldn't access them. She couldn't check the balance. She couldn't log in, and she couldn't get a hold of anybody that could tell her what was going on. So, posted a thread about that and sounded the alarm saying, if you bank with Bank of America, you should take your money out now, before it's too late, because this is not the first time. And I did a whole thread on all the examples. Well, I guess it got their attention because Elon replied to it, and, overnight, and by the next day, Bank of America was blowing up their phones, the documentary filmmaker trying to get them on the phone to remedy the situation. So, that was one example. The other example, is the guy that's in Japan that I mentioned earlier. Um, this happened the same week. Um After I wrote his story, I had doctors reach out to me offering to write an exemption, and then I had another, law firm, one of the top law firms in the country, reach out and tell me that, um, to pass along their information that they could, get him an exemption for his wife and be able to, um help him, and they have a 100% success rate. But there's still a long process and turnaround time to get that done, but that was 2 good things out of it, and then he actually reached out the gentleman also reached out to his congressman in Virginia, um, and sent his congressman the article I wrote, and the aide replied, "Yes, we've already flagged this, it's on our radar, and we will keep you posted." So, that's the power of X, is that you can shine light on things that happen that are wrong and when injustice occurs, and, you know, with the right, um, response ratio, you can, get people's attention and get people the help that they need. So, that's just 2 recent examples I can think of off the top of my head.
And how do you balance covering controversial topics while maintaining credibility and trust with your audience?
That is something I'm still trying to master, 'cause sometimes I wanna share funny things that I think are they make me laugh, and I think it'll make other people laugh, but at the same time, not everyone has the same sense of humor, but I just have to be true to myself. The end of the day, that's what we should all do, and if something makes you laugh and you wanna share it, I think you should. Now it is difficult when you, mainly focus on really heavy and serious stuff and you wanna maintain that credibility and respect, but at the end of the day, I only have 1 account that I'm using, and, it's my personal account, my platform, and I think my audience can appreciate that I also can share funny things that, will hopefully make them laugh, just like I can share something that's really tragic that's going on and try to maintain a balance there. I know I make some people mad. I get blocked a lot by random people. I have no idea who they are. Um, but you can't make everybody happy. But as long as you're staying true to yourself, that should be all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's definitely a delicate balance. And on a similar note, how do you ensure the accuracy and reliability of the information?
Um, I always vet my stories before I publish them. Uh, I interviewed, multiple people, and I went and I'm just gonna keep referencing my pen post since that's the most recent one. I have another story coming out, very soon. It should be published the next day or 2. But for that one, looked up the laws and the bill, that was brought to introduce to Congress about removing this, requirement for the COVID-19 vaccine and going directly to the sources and also vetting with, um, different people that I interviewed to get, going directly to the source. So there's a lot of different ways, and it just depends on the story of how you go about vetting it. But I mean, only times I've gotten community noted were when I shared like a Babylon Bee screenshot and it was clearly satire, but somebody somewhere wanted to clarify the record. I think it was something about Disney and um I don't know, it was something really funny about Disney, and I shared a screenshot of that, and it said the Babylon Bee on it, but somebody working on the community notes side decided that it needed clarification that it was satire because it was a little too close to reality, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some accounts actually have like parody tag beside them, and others, even though they're like simulating accounts, don't. So I was always curious if it's an actual policy or it's just like a courtesy, like why having that parody tag.
Oh, with parody is actually I think, legitimate policy because otherwise it goes against impersonation, right?
Right.
So like if you do parody, it's obvious what you're doing. You're just basically doing impersonation. But the artwork essentially in this is like it's transformative. And so that's why you have the concept of a parody, right? Because that's what it is. And yeah, so you have to have parody in your name visibly, or just like at least in your name, and then it is fine. But visibly is actually something I would personally include within the policy because there are issues such as when you have account names with very big, long names, you could have put press release parody, and it just basically obfuscates the parody thing most of the time when you see it on timeline. And I think that causes next level amounts of confusion, but that's just a me thing.
I couldn't agree more. And I think the Marjorie Taylor Greene account, it was either that one or the AOC one. Elon replied and said, "Can you please make the parody more obvious and closer to the front of your name?" And they said yes, but I think later they went back and made it like, fall off the edge. I think people like to do that so that when they're in spaces that you you can't tell that it's a parody, and I've seen so many people on this app engage with especially the Marjorie Taylor Greene parody account. She's everywhere, and thinking that it's really, really her. Just it's very entertaining, but it's really kind of deceptive with the whole press release parody being at the end.
I mean, I think even an official sitting member in Congress replied to it thinking it was real.
Yep.
That was such a gaffe. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I think that
I thought Sam Altman was in this space, and I had to click on the the picture and found out it was Sam Altman's parody. I was like, "Oh my god." My heart sank for a second there because that would just be too wild
It's
to have
technically
Sam
Sam's
Altman.
Altman.
Wow.
It's Sam's Altman. Oh, I love
He
it.
actually was in here at I still remember when the OpenAI drama happened. He was actually chilling in here for a few minutes. Same was also Lex Friedman. That was
Really?
big. That was a huge space.
Yeah.
We had that space going for I think 1 day and something hours. And we were covering both the OpenAI drama and the launch of IFT2, I think it was. Yeah, that was a good space. Was it IFT2 or 3? I think it was 2.
2, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
I think it was
proudest
2.
moment being that close to Sam Altman.
He probably just trolls spaces to find the next voice that he wants to hijack. What do you
Oh
think?
wow. Well, this was way before us, and then we had Skyjo, so that's cool.
Yeah, the Sky drama, that's crazy.
I miss Sky. Sky was the best voiced.
Well, Scarlett Johansson agrees with you, but she wants credit for that, and she said no. He did it anyway.
I mean, it's interesting because he said, "Oh, it's not supposed to be that," but they did ask, so they were aware of the similarity and went and they pressed on with it anyways. Definitely being aware of the fact that there are similarities and capitalized on it.
And they even reached out to her again, like 2 weeks before the launch, and Sam did, and said, "Are you sure? We'd really like to use your voice." Like, so not just once,
Yeah.
but twice and right before the launch. That's
Really
just so
telling.
damning.
Yeah.
That's yes, yes.
Yeah, and then they posted her another reference to the voice so in relation. So
Yep.
yeah, there's definitely it's not just a coincidence.
Lindsay, I just stepped away for a minute, so I heard you guys were talking about community notes. So I'm not sure if somebody said that already, but there is one proposed note on your last article. Did you see that?
Proposed notes don't count in my book because I never see them.
Yeah,
But which post is it on?
the last post about stranded, and it's something about travel visas and detail. I think it sorts itself out. It will sort
Well,
itself out.
yeah, well, that note would be invalid because I have everything sourced in that article linking to the current. They removed tourists. They removed the requirement for tourists. So if you come in and you're just a tourist visiting, you do not have to get the COVID-19 vaccine. But if you're coming to live here on a work visa, like his wife is not an American citizen yet, he is, and his girls are. So there's still a requirement. And Thomas Massey actually introduced a bill on the floor in Congress last year. I think it was July 2023, to remove that requirement, but it's the only one they have not removed yet. So they need to bring that legislation to the floor for a vote in order to remove it. They removed all the other ones like citizens and tourists, but this is just the one for a working visa, which doesn't make any sense to still have it when we have, such a massive influx at the border where there are no requirements whatsoever if you come in illegally. And they've thought about coming in illegally, but they really don't want to do it that way. They want to go the legal route. He said, honestly, if somebody could provide safe passage for me to come across the border, I would think about that, and consider it. But honestly, it's a not just an easy feat. It's a dangerous path to take. So there's just risks on both sides, coming in legally and having to get a shot that you don't want and you don't need, as a young, healthy person, or going through the border when there's cartels that are running, human trafficking rings that way. So it's just a dangerous situation all the way around, and they really just need to remove that requirement. So that community note that's proposed, Alex, they're in the wrong, and I assure you that everything in that my entire thread and article is factual.
No, don't worry about it. I actually checked it myself, and the guy who proposed it is wrong. He thought you were talking about all U.S. citizens, non-immigrants, while you were talking about immigrant visas, right? So it's sorted. No worries.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you mentioned like you have to like have a thick skin to handle the criticism. So how do you handle the backlash or criticism from those who disagree with your viewpoints?
I will engage with anyone and everyone that disagrees with me in a respectful way, as long as they're not coming at me with profanity and just insults, and we can engage in a dialogue. Like, I love engaging with somebody that doesn't see things with me but wants to engage in a respectful way. I enjoy that, and I enjoy constructive criticism, and I take it back and try to assess my perspective to see if they're right, because sometimes criticism is good. I think not sometimes. I think criticism can be really good, and deserved in some cases. So I try to take it all in and assess what has merit and what doesn't.
Did it bother you like at first, some, you know, did you ever get backlash from respected like big influential accounts?
I don't think I've ever been trolled by a really big account. I'm trying to think. Well, I'll take that back. Some epidemiologist commented on my excess mortality videos and said something that was, I can't remember what it was, but there was so much so much of a political aspect to everything that we went through during COVID, that people would just try to do their worst to insult you if they didn't agree. And they never try a lot of people didn't ever take the time to just see it from an individual perspective instead of a political perspective. So um I can't even remember the guy's name, but he's apparently very famous in the academic community. But it turns out that my videos might have some credence to them with this new study that or article that came out in the BMJ. So, you know, um, truth always wins in the end, and sometimes it's just a matter of time, and you can let your critics just sit on it and see. And Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who's I consider a friend, when I met up with him in San Francisco when I was there to cover the Twitter files, and he drove down from Stanford to meet with me and Paul. And he said, "I really liked your videos. They're very interesting." And then later on, after dinner, he goes, "But I think it was all just a bunch of noise." And I was like, "Oh, that hurts. That hurts. You have a Stanford epidemiologist telling you that your work was just a bunch of noise." But this new BMJ article, I sent it to him. It's like, well, maybe not. Maybe not noise. Maybe there's something here. But really, it was just a more of a conversational work of art, I guess, to say, um, for lack of better words, just showing like this is what the data is showing. Like maybe we should talk about this. Why is it going up? Usually, when you roll out a remedy, less people should be dying, not more. But it just continued to go up. So, um, but over time, you're either wrong or you're right, and the truth comes out. So, um, I try not to do "I told you so's," but I guess I kind of did with Dr. Bhattacharya there. But he's still my friend.
Yeah, and so can you speak a bit more about the Twitter files? I mean, you did cover certain things in your Substack, like exposing the former CIA agent's role. Anything else that you found interesting during that period?
The CDC's involvement in that. So several articles, since Paul was the lead on that, and Paul and I went to assist Paul and help Paul as like um also a journalist, but he was lead on it. So he got to publish the majority of the pieces that we found first. Um, but I know everyone wanted to see the Fauci files, so we like dug and dug and dug and dug, and we published everything we found, which was not a lot. He just wasn't mentioned like within the communications for that. But the seeing the number of NGOs that were literally had a hand in who was censored and who wasn't. Public Good Project was one. They would send a spreadsheet of handles, tweets, and then what the tweet said, and then misinformation, please consider removing. Misinformation, please consider removing. And it would have a spreadsheet every week of a list of handles and what people said, and they wanted Twitter to remove it for misinformation. So um, that that was wild because that entire organization is funded in large part by um, organizations that have direct ties to the pharmaceutical company. So basically, they were having Twitter help them with their PR strategy by censoring any dissent or stories that would make them or their products look bad. So it was really dark, and it was fascinating to see. Like, and I do remember seeing an internal email exchange between Twitter employees about how somebody that was received both the vaccines in 2021 had tested positive for COVID, and then another person, and then another person, but they were starting to censor people on Twitter at the same time this global email was going around at Twitter, um, censoring people that said you can still get COVID after you get vaccinated. So even though on their internal emails they were all aware that the very employees that worked at Twitter were contracting COVID in 2021 after they were vaccinated, they weren't allowing other people to say that on their platform. So definitely wild times.
And how did the data dump look like? You mentioned someone else was a lead. Did you get involved in it? Like, how did you get access to Twitter files? And what was the story like of your involvement? How did it all begin for you?
Well, Paul Thacker is my friend, so I knew him, and he's also the journalist that was hired by the BMJ to cover Brooke Jackson, the Pfizer whistleblowers, fraud claims for the clinical trials that she oversaw. So he was a journalist on that. He's an award-winning journalist that is really well known in DC, but he now lives in Spain. But so I got to go with Paul. We had to get vetted in order to go, and then it made 2 trips out to San Francisco, and the second trip. We spent an entire week from sun up until like 10 o'clock at night, every day that week, and we were given laptops with files on it that was not connected to the internet. And we just had to take pictures of the screens and search the computer and look for um, information for stories to cover. So that's how it was done for everybody. We're in a big room. It had a beautiful view of San Francisco with big windows all the way down, and there were still Twitter birds on the wall at the time. And then at night we'd have to leave and hope that we didn't get mugged because the streets were just I mean, it was crazy. Like there was like 50 homeless people standing on the corner, but they didn't feel like it felt more of an aggressive vibe the second time we went. Like the crime seemed to be getting worse. So and Twitter's headquarters is located right close to where a lot of these homeless people are. So it was an adventure. San Francisco is actually such a beautiful city, and architecture and everything is just stunning and gorgeous. But I'm hoping they can figure out a way to address that homeless situation. Maybe they should just have President Xi come visit more often, and it would happen. I don't know. If y'all don't know that story, you should look it up because it's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You mean the she?
Yeah, when President Xi came, somehow miraculously, all the streets that were filled with trash and homeless people just disappeared, and nobody knew where they went or what happened. But after they were gone, they all came back, and it was like magic. I don't know how that worked, but
Using
maybe if they had
existing
him back
funds,
more
mind you.
often.
That's another thing. I said using existing funds, they were able to fix this problem. But in reality, what they did, I think, was they pushed them out into the Tenderloin district, I believe. But I can't verify that.
That's where Twitter headquarters is the Tenderloin district.
That explains why it got so bad around about this time. Because I still remember a friend
Yeah.
of mine was driving through this. He was like, "Man, hey, this area of San Francisco is really, really clean, but it got really shit in other areas." He was like, "Yeah, I think I know why that happened, but I'm not going to tell you just now."
Yeah, that's why it was so absolutely insane whenever San Francisco was gonna tried to fine Elon for sleeping at Twitter headquarters when there is such a massive crime influx and homeless people situation, and they're wanting to actually fine the man who just came in and invested $44 billion into their city, and it's like, we have survived the most crazy times ever. Like, it just is laughable when you really put it into perspective about what was going on around Twitter headquarters at the same time they were going after him for a sign that he put up or wanting to sleep in his office so he could get more work done. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Yvonne?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, yeah. I remember when that happened. Oh my God, that was so ridiculous. And you're right. Like, hello, perspective, please. I mean, that's and Elon was even fighting for the city. Other people were like, move out of San Francisco, and he's like, no, because he's so good about stuff like that. He's like, no, I'm determined to stay here and not move the headquarters, and they're doing ridiculous things like that. OMG. Um, I was curious with X leveling everything up with video content, right? And I know that both Linda and Elon have mentioned how they're going to be doing video forward, and even how we have the live streams now. And I think it's gonna be epic and amazing, like a true competitor with YouTube, which I'm really excited about, especially without having the censorship and having the free speech. Are you planning on doing any kind of live broadcasts, or like in the future maybe doing, in-person interviews and stuff, kind of like how Tucker Carlson does? Are you thinking of anything in that in pipeline?
Yeah, so I was actually approached recently about starting a podcast, and some people that wanted to help invest in like hiring a team to help me produce that and stream it live on X. And they wanted somebody that is not all the way on the right, all the way on the left, but more someone who is down the middle and just believes in liberty to tell stories, important stories of what can be done um, to help the little guy that is just trying to survive in a world where we're up against a big government, big corporations in a lot of ways. So I'm in talks with someone about that. I would love that. And I would also love it if they could do like 2 videos in spaces so you could at least see 2 faces instead of 1. Because I know they've added video spaces, but it's so awkward just to have a video space where you're the only person that people can see. Nobody can see anyone else. I guess it would work if you were with somebody else to do it. I don't know, but I think the the future looks bright with the potential that is coming down the pipeline with this team. I'm excited about it. But so in a short to shorten that answer, yes.
I think all the co-hosts can do video as well now, right? Is that
Really?
implemented
Not
Is
at
yet?
the
that
moment. Not
But
at
they're
the moment,
supposed
not
to
that
be.
I'm aware of. Is it?
Okay, but I think it's supposed to be like that.
I
I
certainly
think
hope
it's
so.
coming soon if it's not here yet.
I think for video
They
integration, desktop should be actually one of the best ways to do it, because if they actually put it into desktop, then you can control the camera feed with whatever you want. So you could actually make it look like an actual live. I think live TV, I think would be less than an actual live stream. You could actually do it here on Spaces and then control whatever video source it is, much like with audio as well. Because like I control all stuff that comes in and out of my microphone, for instance, that allows me to do various things, such as, say, for instance, this. Right, so you can just like do whatever you want.
Love it. I want that as my intro next time, Adrian.
Are you hosting
Sure.
from desktop right now?
Yes, this is also why my microphone quality has improved right now. So yeah, first I had to start on my phone, but there's some sort of glitch where I can't get back in, so I switched to desktop.
That's why it shows that you're still muted, but you're talking. So it really looks like you're Elon talking over the space right now with your superpowers. That
Yes.
Oh, my mom's in the space. She probably thought I was talking to Elon this whole time.
Yeah, that's a little entertaining outcome for the simulation.
Reoccurring problem.
Do you want to speak a little bit about your interactions with Elon? How you first, if you like your first engagement with him, or perhaps even earlier, like
Yes, I want you to marry him.
when
Yeah.
did you hear of him, and why, like why it was significant?
Well, as I told you before I came over and started using my Twitter account, I saw him in an interview with the Babylon Bee, talking about Twitter. I had never viewed it the way he described it, like how you can get on here and it's the one platform that you can tag just about anybody in the world, whether it's political or a CEO of a company or a celebrity or anybody. And it's like the one platform you can get on here and be able to interact and, make a difference or call out somebody for something. And it really makes a big impact. There's really not another platform out there that does that. So I thought that's really cool. So whenever I was seeing all the censorship happen on Instagram and Facebook, I was like, okay, I've got to get off of this and I have to do something about this. Like, and I remember that interview and I thought, well, this is the best place to do it is going to be Twitter. So that's when I started using my account. But yeah, I don't know. I met him at Twitter headquarters for the X Files. It was still the Twitter files. But and then yeah, I don't know. Like it's he follows my content. So that's a cool perk. He's one of my few subscribers. That's a cool perk. I don't really say that very much out loud because I nobody likes somebody that's just bragging about who follows them or whatever. But that was a really cool moment because I have so much respect for him and what he's done for free speech and to be supported back by him as it was a really cool moment and I'm really grateful for that.
Do you remember when when he started following you? Was it after you've met him, or like it was some random time? Like,
It was
uh,
after I met him. It was after I met him. And yeah, I think everybody would remember that. Like it's kind of a big deal.
right.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Um, yeah, so it's crazy. It is fun though, discovering like somebody that you respect or is kind of a big deal when you realize they're following you and it's not on your radar and you didn't realize it. That's happened a few times, and that's a cool feeling too. But it's just cool to be able to connect with all these people around the world that you know and have respect for. Like Jack used to follow me too, and that was really cool. But then he went and unfollowed everybody except 4 people a few weeks ago. That made me kind of sad because I thought it was the coolest thing in the world to have Jack and Elon following me. I was like, I'm doing something right. But Jack has now made it very exclusive. I think he's following Stella Assange and Ed Snowden and Elon, and then I think he followed one other like movie premiere or something that's coming up. But um, Jack gets a lot of hate on this platform from conservatives because they believe he was, directly responsible for censoring them. And I wasn't on Twitter at the time when he was in charge of it. I was on Twitter whenever Parag, however you say his name, was in charge. And I was shocked to learn about his ideologies and how Parag viewed um, Parag was anti-free speech. He did not believe in free speech, and he was open about the fact that he didn't believe in free speech. And that to me is very, very, very troubling to adhere to an ideology like that because and knowing that he was steering the ship. So um, it was Twitter was headed down a dark path because of that, and I'm just so grateful that um, he was forced out as soon as Elon got there because anybody that doesn't believe that people should be able to speak their truth and share their stories, but big corporations and big government should determine what is acceptable or not. That is not a world I want to live in. So um, I personally don't have any thing bad to say about Jack. I think Jack is now advocating for free speech and more transparency and algorithms, and everything I've seen from him so far, I think is awesome. But I know there are a lot of people out there that don't agree with me on that, and that's okay. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Luckily, they're able to share it now. So
Yeah, Twitter was on a dark path, I feel like, and also like outright election manipulation, right? And we really can't have that like this. But don't feel bad about bragging. I think everybody here on stage would brag about these things. This is kind of the currency around these parts. So feel happy. Feel free to brag about this.
Unless asked, don't do it. That's how I always see it. Unless asked, don't do it. Because if you use that as kind of like an entry pass, it tends to become like less about what you're actually able to achieve and what other people think you could achieve. So it's like a limiting
if you
factor. It
know,
could also be at some point.
I didn't bring it up, and I only responded when asked that if I was in the audience right now and somebody
Oh yeah,
was
exactly.
leading with that, I find that very annoying, and yeah, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah, I like your comment about like without letting someone speak, you would not find out what the person is about, even if they have, if they're not great. So that was an interesting peculiarity. Um, what are your favorite accounts? Do you have any inspirational accounts or all-time favorites that you follow and kind of recommend?
After seeing the documentary about Roaring Kitty, since I wasn't on Twitter when all of that happened, seeing him come back on and post all these meme videos and what he did with his account out of nowhere after not posting for years, that has been so entertaining to me. Uh, gosh, I don't know. Um, I find following an eclectic mix of people and views is really fun and refreshing because if you only follow people that you agree with, it is so boring and you never get to see like someone else's perspective. So I think diversifying who you follow is really important. Um, and I love seeing how something unfold on X as it's happening and then seeing how it's covered in the news and by the mainstream media and how their take on it is or what their spin on it is. And that's always entertaining. But uh gosh, I don't know. I should know some good accounts off the top of my head that I could spew out, but there's so many um across the board that I really enjoy. Maybe I'll do like I can do a top 10 post later with my favorite accounts that I follow, and I'll tag you in that wiggle.
That would be great. What about inspiration? What inspires you?
Um, integrity. I find integrity very inspirational when I see people adhering to their beliefs and their principles. Um, People that win in the end when they had all the odds against them, they've stood the test of time of the past few years. I've seen a lot of doctors have to stand up for what they believe in and have to fight just to keep their medical license for, not for speaking out against vaccine mandates. Um, People that can't afford to do things and take risks, but they do them anyway because it's right. Those are the people that inspire me.
Awesome. And what about X, like app itself? Do you have any favorite features? What do you like the most about it?
Um, I love its reach and its potential. I love that you can, like, post something, go to bed, and wake up the next day, and it's gone super viral and completely unexpected. I love that you can watch, feuds go down between 2 people, 2 prominent figures, and it all unfolds on this platform, like, that's always entertaining. Um, my least favorite feature is the out trying to figure out the algorithm when you have an important story to drop and you don't wanna drop it when your, posts aren't going anywhere. Like, trying to figure that aspect out would be great, but I feel like it does change pretty often. Um, um, yeah, I mean, I love this app. I use it all the time, every day, and the first time I took a break from it for several days was just recently because 'cause I'd not been on a non-work related trip in years. So that was a much needed break, to take a minute and touch grass and, look outside. But I now, like, I've met people from all over the world. I've traveled and gone on trips, all over the world because of this app. And I met my doctor on this app. My landlord I met on this app. Like everything about my entire life now has been connected in one way or another to this platform. So it's probably the coolest thing that I've ever used, and I'm a big fan. What can I say?
So you're pretty much on X and Substack, and no other social networks.
I mean, I do have an Instagram account, but I don't use it. I think the last time I used it was to post about my dog dying so that my friends that I don't keep in touch with very often were aware, but that's pretty much it. I don't like, meta platforms at all. The amount of censorship that occurred over the last few years was unforgivable, and it hurt so many people. So, I don't wanna give it my attention, and that's a currency. Your attention is a currency. So, anytime you give a platform like that your attention, you're enabling their censorship and their control, and that is not something I support.
Yeah, and what about like LLMs and AI? How do you do you use that for your content?
No, I've heard a lot of people will do that. Now, I'll read and I'll post videos or I'll post like updates about what's going on in the AI world, but I don't use it to write anything. I've had a few people like tell me I need to use that more and rely on it more to write scripts or whatever, but um, I guess I'm already old school in this new age. I like to be authentic and I don't like for something to write my stuff for me, and I don't think it's really there yet. It's as far as my content goes. 'Cause yeah, no, I
So
don't, but I know there's outlets that are using it now, like, full time to write
yeah.
articles and stuff, it's wild.
Yeah, exactly. So you mentioned your least favorite is figuring out the algorithm. So you analyze your posts obviously, and you see like how they're performing. Have you noticed any trends or any patterns that benefited you in your
Yes.
in formulating the new posts?
I really try not to pay attention to it, but, like, when I do have a story that, I'm ready to post, I try to do it at a time the algorithm seems like it's gonna be the most favorable so that my work and the person's story that I'm telling gets the most reach. That's the only reason I really care about that. I don't care if, like, I post a picture or something and it doesn't go anywhere, no one sees it, like, that doesn't matter, but, like, when I have an important story to tell, or share, then, yeah, I try to analyze it for that reason, and that honestly, that reason alone. Unfortunately, the algorithm seems to love bad, controversial things, like, just me posting about the Miss Alabama pageant winner just went super viral, and then a clip of Biden, it went super viral, and they're both very simplistic things that I guess anybody in the world can have an opinion about or understand easily by looking at it, and it doesn't require a lot of thought or a lot of reading, and so it seems like the most simple things tend to go the most viral, and sometimes the most important things should, but they don't. So that's a bummer, but I don't know how that gets fixed.
I think it's the result of the current context window, narrow context window, or reduced attention span, because nobody
Yes,
has time for that.
I agree.
So
I
yeah,
agree, and I
yeah.
try to simplify things and make them um make people want to engage or like read a few more words further. But it's like you can spend all your time writing something, but if nobody's reading it, like what have you done? Like would it be better just to turn your story into a meme? Like no. I guess the intellectuals are still out there. There's just not as many of them wanting to I mean, there's just not as many intellectuals that want to actually read a full story or a full thread. Um, and that's just it is what it is. So I don't know if it's a societal thing or just an algorithm thing. It's a good question.
What about generated content, like let's say AI generated content? How would it affect objectivity and truth in the future where it's indistinguishable from reality? How do you think we'll know what is real and what is not?
I mean, right now we're living in the matrix already. I mean, Adrian is part of the simulation and is obviously Elon's clone. How do we know that he's real or not? I think that that is gonna be something that is gonna be very interesting to watch and see how, people react. There's already a ton of, the boomer generation on Facebook that will see a beautiful picture of a clearly AI generated house, but all the comments are just flooded with people thinking that it's real, and they're like, "Oh, where is this? It's beautiful," and, like, they're already, like, even if you posted a picture of somebody with, 6 fingers, it seems like, people on, um, older generations are not, like, attuned to it, but I think younger people are already starting to notice things, but eventually that there won't be 6 fingers and won't be so easy to spot, so it's gonna be difficult to navigate, and, um, I don't know how, we're gonna be able to decipher what's real or not unless we get out and see people in person and talk face to face. That's really the only deciding factor that I can see alleviate that anxiety, and but also finding sources that you trust that can actually verify what's being shared, I think is going to be key.
Yeah, the touching the grass and the physical connections are becoming less relevant nowadays. Um,
But more important than ever.
yep, yep. So how do you see the future of the independent journalism evolving in the next few years?
That's tricky because the only way it can survive is if journalists are able to support themselves and have income to live off of. So I know a lot of people that write on Substack and publish on Substack are doing extremely well. So as long as there's platforms like X and Substack and Rumble that are able to pay independent journalists and independent reporters, and that can increase, I think that that will continue to grow. I think it's going to heavily rely on um, members of the public, doing what they can to support the sources and journalists that they trust. So I think if you continue to push out important stories and people appreciate your work and they trust what you're publishing, then um, it will be agreeable to you in the long run. But it'll be interesting to see how all this works out, especially with the X monetization as that grows and expands, which I think it will over time. I think that will be a great resource for independent creators. I just wish there was a way
So,
for video content creators to publish their content on X without people stealing their work and not crediting the creators. I know that's a real issue. It's happened to me a lot. Um, well, they'll tag you, but then you don't get the monetization aspect of it. So like that happens to a lot of people on here. I don't know how that's fixed. I know YouTube is successful in that way because they'll take down if somebody like steals your stuff. You can't do that on a platform like that. So that's one thing that I'm hoping that there's a solution somewhere along the way that can remedy that so that the people that put in their time, effort, and energy to producing original content can get credit for that.
there's a problem with reach, I think, because you have, for instance, this ability to quote post video only, right? It would be nice if a fraction, essentially, of the revenue that is gained on this individual post would essentially also be given to the original creator. And I think that's not mapped out. And another thing is, duplicates. If you're actually actively taking someone's content and you're just reposting it without, that starts to harm things in other places, because the moment you begin to do something like this is where you have to make then you have to draw a defining line between what is a meme and what is actually just, content created by a person, right? So it'd have to be very well established as well. I'd hope that happens in the future, because if you just take memes and you publish someone else's thing, then that's how memes are supposed to be used. But for content that you make yourself, not so much. So that's another little problem. And
It's
I think for
tricky.
advertising, the revenue will go up with like advertisers. I think will largely move to this platform if the value of advertising here becomes more apparent, and there's certain features in place like not a bot fee that that makes it almost like a guarantee that the advertisement is being seen by real people. And if you can actually verify this, and if that is maximized, then I think it will become much more valuable for people to advertise here, because you are guaranteed a real audience to the thing that you're advertising, right? And of course, once that becomes apparent, then the amount of the payout for what you're getting is also increased, because then there's more money thrown into the system. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Be really cool for X.
I agree. Yeah, like even if someone like embeds a video that you post and I mean technically it gives you credit by at the bottom, but yeah, there's no monetization on that. So, like people are posting their documentaries that they've spent months producing on exclusively on X, but people will come along and embed them, which that's just how Twitter works, like to embed videos, it's totally fair. But people that like screen record it or download it and one way or another and don't credit the original, like especially independent creators, I think is the bummer. But I don't know how they're gonna fix that. Hopefully a solution comes along at some point.
Yeah, and even with I think I've seen duplicate posts myself as well. Somebody was copying an entire thread word for word, image for image. There was literally nothing transformative added to it. They just like basic copy paste, and it actually got more impressions than the initial publisher itself, which is really, really weird. And that's still not. I'm still tracking that, and nothing has happened to it. So it's really weird to see this kind of stuff. I think community notes could help with this, but then, how do you actively track this? Something would then need to be defined in the algorithm and say, okay, here you have something that's repetitive. So it's probably either A, engagement farming, B, platform manipulation, or C, it is just, plagiarism, right? So that's something that needs to be integrated. Perhaps something that will happen when, AI is more, AI is integrated to the platform, namely, I think Grok as well. So yeah,
Yeah, I had somebody once take my tweet word for word, exactly what I captioned it, and they took the video that I spent weeks making and, posted it on their own account, and I was like, "Oh my gosh," I was a doctor, so I blocked him. I do block people when they steal stuff like
Yeah.
that, and I called him out on it, but, um, he didn't seem very, apologetic, so yeah, I
yeah,
that's
this happens. They also troll spaces. I know for certain that they troll spaces for information. Actually, I think a lot of the things that we say here in these spaces is actually used elsewhere for sure. Because I myself have hosted spaces for quite a long time, and I remember practically everything that I say. There's some sort of little gift, I'd suppose. But I know that certain things then turn up in other places because of what I say, right? I sometimes inject certain keywords in a very specific context in a very specific structure, and I see those structures then appearing in other places, which is quite odd and very too coincidental. And I test it in different weird areas too, where I look at the area before and I say, okay, this is what's being posted in this niche. And I'm going to say something very particular in this niche, and then this very particular thing appears in that niche. It's like, huh, interesting. This also happened with, I think, some big account. I forgot what the name was, but it's this like one of the people just continually rips content. There was a person who confronted, I think, one of these people from the Patriot Front, and they actually recorded the whole interaction and published this underneath my space as a clip to show me, hey, guess what just happened, man? You really have a look at this. And then this dude ripped that content, put it on his account, and I was like, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna change the title of the space to this thing. We're gonna go and reply to this motherfucker over here, and we're gonna let him know that we're completely dissatisfied with that situation. And so we just made a lot of noise, and then it worked. We actually made this really big account our bitch. It's like we're not doing this, man. They actually had to correct it and say, due to incessant complaining and whining, we had to blah 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 blah. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Keep complaining. You just became my bitch. It doesn't matter. I don't care. The credit is
Wow.
given. That's all I care about. So that keeps happening. Kind of on that. What do you think of, like, I want to post something, but I'm not sure how valid it is. But I kind of see this pattern appearing. I think legacy media will pivot to truth in a bit to remain relevant in the long term, because I've seen that there's a small shift where some of the publications that are known to publish blatant lies have begun telling truths again. Like, what do you think? Is that a valid thing to say?
I think that that would be the smart move, but I think there's a tribalism aspect to all this, and and it's a total political devotion that is, or an ideology that is preventing them from wanting to move because they see this as an ideological warfare. Like if you follow Chris Rufo and like his take on it, he's like, "Oh, we got them to surrender," and they're all pushing back, like, "See, by reporting this and doing the right thing here, the right wing is celebrating." And you know, if we could just lose the right and left things and just report like what is good for humanity, what is good for children. Obviously, I think that I know this is controversial, which is shocking to me, but like a, a child does not need to have their body parts cut off because they believe that they're a boy or a girl. I think that's dangerous, and I think it's dangerous for our society to say that saying that out loud is dangerous. So some of these things are just so far out that it's crazy times. Like, but we should do whatever we can to protect children from that happening because when they get old enough and regret it, which has happened a lot to a lot of people, it's not something they can go back and change. And I think, as human beings and adults, as a society, we should do whatever we can to protect them. So I don't know. I think that it would be great. I do see that the Overton window is shifting some, but there's still a battle between the divide and how polarized and political everything is. So if that is ever able to shift and change where it can go back to center and normal somewhat, that would be amazing. And if there's any platform out there that I think gives me hope on doing that, it's the one that we're on right now. So, and if we didn't have this, I think all hope would be lost, to be honest with you. I can't even imagine where we would be today. It would feel very hopeless. So I think it's making a difference. Slowly but surely.
Yeah, I think it's actually true what you just said, Adrian. I see that a little bit. I don't want to say it's great. No, it's still bad out there in the media world, but and it starts with places like X, I believe, because we saw that when Elon Musk just stopped censoring things, then Facebook eased up on that as well, right? Because Mark Zuckerberg saw that and it's like, oh, I don't have to. Well, if I don't have to, it's easier for me not to, right? And I see that ripples out. Like his buying of Twitter ripples out in the entire social media sector, and all of them became a little more free. And I think it's true for legacy media as well. At some point, I mean, it's a competitive advantage.
I
Yeah,
think
true. I think I've been always thinking about this for a little bit, but I think it became glaringly apparent with the Starship launch because for the first time they were actually complimenting the achievement as opposed to being detractors of the achievement, saying that it failed in some capacity or another. Like it's a really, really weird stark contrast that I'm seeing. Was like, wait a minute, aren't you the same people who said that this thing was a failure? Kind of weird, kind of weird. But I
it's
guess then.
sad when
Hmm.
you're excited to see those headlines though. When something is true, it almost everyone now is like, "Wait, why are they saying this is true? Something's wrong." Because it's been so wrong for so long that everyone is shocked when they actually do report something accurate and truthful.
Yeah, we are
Yeah.
herd animals, right? And it's all about perception in a way. That's why, a lot of people on the right didn't like that Linda became CEO, right? Because she used to be World Economic Forum and all that. And I thought that's great because if those two stand together and Elon just says the things he says, well, then she stays beside him and nobody says anything. And now I can say them too, right? Because nobody can say anything. And that's how these things ripple out. That's why I think this was so important for him to buy this. I think, I don't want to sound too epic here, but that changed the course of the world.
Yeah,
Oh
I was
yeah, because I mean,
hesitant at first, but yeah. Go ahead, Adrian. I'm sorry.
information kind of like management systems kind of control the world because everything's about information. I think the universe itself and everything that's in it is designed to do only one thing, and that is to essentially mine for entertaining outcomes, more or less. And this information, whatever it be, it just needs to be kept somehow refined and put to good use to shape things into more entertaining things, to kind of like struggle against this adjustment of difficulty that's chaos. So I mean, these platforms are huge and they have a next level impact, and so does, of course, the media. And I know many times people say the media is dead, but don't underestimate them. Do not, under any circumstances, underestimate what legacy media is still capable of. Just because there isn't interest now doesn't mean that there won't be any interest in the future on a particular, you know, like people have lost their jobs and they're continuing to lose their jobs based on what legacy media is able to do. Just not so long ago, someone got fired from, I think it was Google or something. He was their theoretical physicist because they doxed him for what he was saying on X. There was Forbes specifically. They doxed this person who we now know as Guillaume Verdun, also known as Beth Jesus on this on this platform,
Oh
but they
yeah.
doxed him and they got him fired. And this was, of course, after X was freed and such, right? So before you had hate mobs on X or like actually, sorry, Twitter. It's funny, it's the inverse problem of not being able to say Twitter anymore. But there used to be hate mobs here, and I think to a certain extent there still are. But there's so much meme that works against the hate that it's not as effective anymore. But before there used to be here, so you can still see that the power is there. The influence is still there, and we shouldn't under any circumstances say, oh, it's dead, it's done, because from a business perspective, I think it's dead, but they are still getting money. That is not the point. They are still very influential. They still control a lot of the information. And besides, I mean, I was run through the cycle as well. They made articles about me, and my following went from 30K to 60K in less than a day. that's a signal. If that doesn't
Well,
tell you that they still matter somehow, I don't know what else will. You know, they
because they
still
told
may
everybody
lie,
that you
but
were fun.
mm, yeah, that was
When
really interesting. They kind of shot themselves in the foot with that one.
That was
Yeah,
hilarious. I
it's
love seeing that.
it's like a zombie. It's already dead, but it's still coming at you, man.
Wow. Yeah,
That's
that's a
a good
good
one.
one.
Oh my god, you should post that out. That's so good. Ooh, so I actually had that was so good. I actually have a question. I was curious, like, well, I'll just say also to complement what you guys were saying is that man, I hadn't watched mainstream media in such a long time, quite honestly, because I couldn't stand all the medical commercials that were on there. Because what you feed in your mind, I mean, commercials and advertisements are very subliminal, and they know that. That's why they work, right? And the repetition of that. And if you watch too many of those things, I mean, those things can penetrate you, and then you end up making yourself sick. And I mean, it's crazy things that can happen from the power of suggestion. And coming on here, hearing so many different political sides, because I have friends on the right and on the left. I'm a center myself, and I always want to know both sides, and from the person firsthand as much as possible. And I would hear, certain friends say certain things and other friends say other things. And man, when I came on here, the veil was lifted, especially because I was not into politics because so many things are such lies and I can't stand that. And I was hearing some of the discussions that people were having on spaces from both sides and people arguing both sides. The wealth of information on this platform is off the freaking charts, even like educational wise and just understanding things. Like, I didn't know so much about engineering and technology that I do now, which I absolutely love. And I have this whole newfound respect. Even when I see a car now, I never thought about it to the level that I used to think about it before because I had never been a mechanic or done those kind of things. And you just learn so many things on this platform. The veil definitely can be lifted for people. And then you find that you're going out in everyday life and you're running into other people and they have certain ideologies, or because they're only listening to the word of the grapevine or what people are saying. I had a friend of mine and she was like, oh yeah, that platform, that's where Elon was. And she's liberal and in entertainment and all that stuff. And being here firsthand, I even saw some of the lies that were being spun off. And I'm realizing how many people out in public that aren't as invested as we are, as understanding the truth and knowing the truth truly. And I was like, actually, that's not true. And this is not true. And I realized, wow, before I was so integrated in here to really truly have an understanding by hearing both sides, I was one of those people. And that right there was incredibly eye opening. And I wanted to ask you, totally aside from that, though, what are some things that you yourself personally like to do for fun? Like, do you have any hobbies or anything like that outside of X?
For a while, I didn't. I was doing this all the time, but I used to sail competitively. That was one of my favorite hobbies. I would go out. There's a really big lake here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and there was like a weekly regatta that I would participate in. That and photography are probably my two favorite things to do. When I guess pre-Twitter, X is what I used to do. But yeah, just like you, Yvonne, like I wasn't involved in politics at all until politics became very involved in my life and everyone else's life around me. And I was like, okay, hold on, what's going on here? But it is so refreshing to get your news directly from sources here and see things unfold and then eventually trickle over into a headline by the mainstream media. I wish more people would use this app. I think it could be such a game changer if people just came on here and got information directly from sources themselves and read what people are actually saying or listen to spaces where they're talking and um, it's very very eye opening, but it's helped me define what I believe in and what I adhere to for my own principles. Is I'm like, well, I don't agree with that person here, but I agree with them on another issue, and I think that's okay. Nobody will ever agree with anybody 100% on everything. And I think it's great to find what you do agree with people on and focus on that being positive. So, yes. I used to have hobbies. I probably should pick those up again sometime soon.
Isn't it also amazing too, like, the other thing that I've noticed, which has been incredible, is that people who are on different sides, and I think that's one of the reasons, obviously, why they had the censorship is because they don't want us communicating, and why this is so powerful, because I have found a lot of people on here, even when they're in spaces and they have big disagreements, where some of them have met in person, even though they're from different political opinions, and friendships have been developed, and where they're just respecting one another with their different value sets and everything, but they're still seeing each other as the human beings instead of just putting this label and saying, "Oh, you're just that," or "Oh, you're just that." There's kind of an opening of the mind where it's like, look, agree to disagree, but respectfully so, and then we can set that aside and still appreciate one another as human beings outside of that. That's been beautiful to witness.
I couldn't agree more. That's why I love going and meeting people that I know from this platform in person at different events and things. It adds a whole nother layer of depth. And I've made friends from both sides of the political spectrum from going and meeting these people in person. But it's such a bummer when somebody associates you with one thing they don't like, is if they think, this aligns with somebody else on the right, or somebody else on the left, then they automatically want to put you in that box and write you off or accept you. It's such a bummer. But I think you're right. They don't want us to all be on here and figure out that the enemy is not the people. The enemy is the people that are trying to control um, the people. So
I think it's kind of cool that we're able to. This also I appreciate. The ability that you can actually post things on X is like the comments, for instance, give you an adjustment to your perspective. Because I think communication is a next level weapon against untruth. Because in and of itself, largely truth boils down to a statistical conclusion, and you need a lot of data points in order to make accurate statistics a reality. And so, if you have different perspectives weighing in on the same issue, you yourself may even discover things that the opposing side has truth in, because that's a good thing. Because if you're like if your perception itself is not challenged, then there is no difference between it and something like a religion. Maybe even less so, because even religion was the culmination of wisdom in some ways, right? So this is also something that's really cool about being able to communicate freely, especially also on spaces, right? This spaces can be used for much more than just shows, or having a standard communication when you're drunk with a bunch of friends and fooling around. But like, it is an amazing tool for communication, which is even algorithmically independent in a sense, right? You could be anyone. You could be very small and come to certain places and spaces and just go from zero to something much bigger. It's quite interesting. That's how I started, and it has obviously worked in less than a year, by the way. So that's kind of cool.
I must say, out of all the spaces I've been in, this is the most pleasant. Everyone's so nice and cordial. I've several times have been in spaces that got so crazy. I was like, I'm never doing spaces ever again. I swore them off so many times because I would either be moderating and hosting, and then I'd have people DMing me trying to kick somebody off stage or something, and I was just like, I can't handle this drama. It's too much. But
Yeah.
this is like a Xanax of spaces. It's very calm. I like it.
Xanax spelled with
With an
Zen.
X.
Yeah. It took quite a while to that's a beautiful thing about doing this for a while. You start to find your crowd, and I think my crowd is people who are very rational, but are also of differing opinions. I think a lot of the people in this space may agree in a few things I say, but also may disagree on others, and we can have interesting conversations around these disagreements because they lead us into other philosophical things about one another. But then you also find, that in reality, drama is just noise, and we want to cut that out as much as possible. I mean, we've had a very engaging space, I would say, just entirely focusing on, good stuff and trying to understand one another's positions, right? That's what an interview is supposed to be about. It's supposed to ask good questions so you can ask better questions along the line. Also, thanks for the amazing questions asked by Wiggle and everyone else on the panel. I'm grateful for finding the people that are here today, thanks to Spaces and X, of course. It's made a next level improvement on my life, and it's really awesome. This platform has a lot of potential, and especially also spaces. Like it's still only at the very beginning, only at the start still, and there's a lot more that can be done. which is going to be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to add to that being a host is actually a challenging task because there's so much going on and there's so many. You have to have a thick skin and there's the comments and your DMs are often negative, and you have to like deal with all that and process it obviously, and it may sometimes it can get hard on the body. So it's definitely a challenging task.
Well, I would just like to thank you, Adrian, and Wiggle, and Alex, and Yvonne, and of course the Doja Blige dog for having.
I'm a dog. I'm a doge.
He's a doge.
So,
He's a good one.
oh my gosh, your laugh sounds exactly like Elon. It's insane every
Jesus
time.
Christ.
I really enjoyed the space, and I loved it. So I'm excited to listen to your next creator interview that you have on here. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for
Thanks for
coming.
coming.
How much more time do you have?
Um, I can hang for a few more minutes.
Okay, cool. Because we may open
What
up
you got?
to come again.
I said, what you got? Do you want to open it up to the audience?
Yeah. I think we got Andre. By the way, Wiggle, do you see any of the hand mechanisms? Because I'm on desktop, so everything glitches after at least 30 minutes of runtime. Things just start not making any sense. Do you see Andre is up? He's funny. Andre sounds like, I'm pretty sure you may be aware of this person. His name is Scott Walter, Dr. Scott Walter. Do you know him?
I don't.
He's
He's
on
an
TV all the
aerospace
time
engineer.
now.
Yeah, he's an aerospace engineer, and he was recently on TV regarding like the SpaceX and the Starship launch. It's kind of cool. He sounds exactly like
Hey,
Andre, but Andre sounds like the Russian version of him.
So Andre
Hey, Adrian.
is the Russian archetype of Scott.
Exactly.
Bingo.
I know, I just heard that Lindsay was talking about how kind of calming and soothing the spaceship, and I'm like, okay, I got to raise my hand and let's shake things up. I'm kidding. Um, I'm kind of curious. I was listening in probably towards the later half. I had a call earlier. Lindsay, what's your take on the idea that X is going to become the everything app? By the way, my UI is glitching, so I don't know if you guys can actually hear me, or I'm not hearing anything right now anymore.
I can hear you.
Oh, I can hear you, but that's it.
Nobody else is saying anything.
I can't hear. I couldn't hear him.
I can.
somebody's talking. I can't
I
hear.
heard
Okay,
him.
let me drop
I'm
off.
sorry.
I'll be back.
I think he was asking, what are your thoughts on X being able to become the everything app, truly become the everything app?
Well, as long as it stays in someone's hands that has good intentions, I think that would be awesome. I worry about it being an everything app and it being in someone's hands that I don't trust, but hopefully there's a way to the future, if Elon is not in charge of it anymore, that it's handed off to a good trustworthy person. So I think if you have good people, good trustworthy people with good intentions, it could be the most amazing thing ever. But as long as Elon is at the helm of this, I think I think it's awesome, and I would love to see what potential it has.
Sure.
That
What
makes
do
sense.
you make of the what do you make of the recent integration of allowing allowing explicit content as a form of expression on this platform?
Well, I mean, porn has always been on this app. Um, I'm obviously I'm not a fan of porn. I don't have any of my subscribers subscribing to me hoping for OnlyFans content or anything like that. So I'm not a huge fan. I don't really see any of that kind of stuff unless it's like one of the bots that reply in comments. Unfortunately, I've seen too many pictures I did not want to see in that area. But I'm not a huge fan of it. I would like it to like not be on there, but it is. So, and as long as I don't see it and it's not coming up in my feed, I can't complain too much. But as a free speech absolutist, I don't know. I think there's typically a line there on the pornography thing that most people feel comfortable saying that, that's a clear line, but I'm not a huge fan of it.
Yeah, I'd largely agree.
Personally.
I didn't really understand that move. I mean, I guess you could turn that problem into a solution if the everything app is, supposed to have that form of expression as well. I guess that's the case. But I'd rather think that information, like systems such as these, should restrict perhaps that element. But I mean, hey, that's just high level complaining. And I think, you know, there is this interesting thing that Jack himself mentioned, where you get to choose your own algorithm. The more you like certain things, the more you reply to certain things, the more you will see of those things. So largely, I've found that if I don't want to see certain things, I just ignore it, right? And I don't get any porn on my feed. The only way you'd actually ever find it is if you'd actively go looking for it, or essentially just look for those replies that you've mentioned. Even those you have to actually go look for because they're in the hidden section and they don't ever show up as much, and you have to like essentially manually hide and block them. So that's just high level complaining more or less. So yeah, it really depends on what any one particular person wants. Like I think if you sign up for the app and you immediately get into it, I would hope that people do not see any pornographic content unless of course they were actively looking for it, because if they just log on and be like, oh shit, hey, we got that here too. I can't imagine that that would reflect very positively on the user experience.
Yeah, I wish that there was like a way you could log into X, but you'd have to log in one more time to view that content. Like that makes sense to me. Like it would be like a sub like community of X. And then it could still be the everything app, but you don't accidentally stumble upon it when you're searching for something. And because it used to happen more often if you're like searching for like some word or some name and then all of a sudden you're seeing porn, like that really sucks. Like nobody wants to be you know, uh, subjected to that kind of imagery and videos and stuff when they don't want to be. Oh, it would be awesome if they could find a way to like just do a double login for that. Like you just have to log in one more time to get to the nasty stuff that you want to look at. If
True,
that's
true.
possible, but maybe we can make it happen.
Stacy, go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Wiggle. Hey, Lindsay, it's so nice to see you in here, and thank you so much for sharing your perspective on this space with Adrian. It's really valuable, and I've followed you for a while. Just wanted.
I'm sorry, I can't hear Stacy
Oh,
either,
shoot.
so I'm gonna need somebody to
O-
tell me what
Okay,
she
do you want
says.
to drop me down and bring me back up?
Can't hear her. Yeah.
Okay, I'll drop down.
In the meanwhile, Lindsay, if you don't mind, like what would be just imagine you would start out on X again today for young creators or journalists. What would kind of your, I don't know, 3 steps be like how to start on X here and how to make this work?
Like, what would I do starting out on here
Yeah,
to
if you would
help?
start out today, if
Okay.
someone in the audience wants to start out doing kind of that kind of thing.
So the first thing I did when I got on here is I replied. A whistleblower came forward and he was trying to find someone that could help connect him with think it was James O'Keefe because he was having trouble getting his story out on the mainstream media because he worked at Eco Health Alliance with Peter Daszak, the lab nonprofit that worked with the lab in Wuhan, and I offered to make an intro for him and connect him with James O'Keefe. So just like a step that like offers to help somebody and like just use your contacts or knowledge to help people. Eventually, I ended up working with him like around the clock after that because he called me and asked if I could help him get his story out. And that's kind of like how all this started. And it was like within 2 days of being on there, I didn't know who to follow or what to do. I was just kind of like, I think I had like maybe 10 followers. I don't know, something crazy. But, you know, just assess with what your goal is, and then see what you can do to help people with their goals, and you can achieve your goals together that way. Usually finding a way to help people is a good way to start. And I'm sad I didn't hear what Stacy was saying.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me
Hopefully
now?
her mic can get fixed when she comes back
Can you
up.
hear me now, Lindsay? No. Anybody?
No,
I can hear you.
pretty sure she can.
All right,
Yeah, we
Wiggle.
can hear Stacy, but we can't hear. Wow.
Okay. Okay. Maybe I'll just give my question to Wiggle then. Wiggle, if that be okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, just let her know, that what does she see as the biggest challenge moving forward in getting and continuing to get the truth out? And does she really see the tide shifting in a kind of a permanently shifting, or is she at all worried that that things might revert back to the way they were before Elon purchased the platform?
So yeah, the question is, what are the challenges do you see for the truth to overcome, like the tide of and be truthful rather than it coming back.
Then the censorship.
Can you say that one
Then
more
the
time?
censorship coming back.
Yeah, then the censorship coming back. Sorry.
What can we do when the censorship's coming back?
How do you find misinformation, basically?
How do you define
Fight,
misinformation, or how do you fight?
fight.
Okay, the best way to fight misinformation is you counter it with factual information, and you keep doing that. The answer is never less speech, it's more. And you counter it, and you have to counter it with a good track record. If you have a good track record of being right, people are going to trust you when it comes to the next time, the next time, the next time. So you just have to you just have to counter it. Like, I don't think censorship is ever the answer. I think censorship is wrong, especially with the people censoring. Turned out to be more wrong in the long run in a lot of cases, and it ended up hurting them and everyone else in between along the way. So I think you counter misinformation with more information, more words, the accurate truth.
So do you see I think that was the second part of Stacy's question. Do you see it now trending in a good direction, like towards, I guess, truthy content?
I think that on this platform it's great, but it is still a massive problem on other social media platforms. People can find the truth if they want to go out and find it, but a lot of times people aren't even aware of what information they're missing out on or being lied to about, because they haven't gone out of their way to seek out alternatives to what they're being told. So typically that it people learn about censorship when it's too late, and they're trying to figure out what went wrong and what caused this, and then they go and seek alternatives to that, and that eventually leads them to find out that everything that they were it's usually a tragedy is the most eye-opening thing for people to realize, that censorship is so dangerous. And it has been all throughout history. It never favored the little guy or the people. It's always favored the people in power. So hope that answers the question.
That's great. Let me see. Blythe, do we have any questions in the comments?
I'm just scrolling through right now. Just give me a sec.
One question, maybe I missed that in the beginning, but how long are you doing this here on X? I see your account is very old, mine is too, but I just came back last year to the platform for real. How long are you actively using X like this?
So I created an account like in 2012, and I think I did it. This is really embarrassing, but it was a long time ago to vote on American Idol because I knew somebody that was competing. And it's like you had to have a Twitter account in order to vote that year. So that's why I created, but I literally never logged in for 10 years. It sat there until 2022 when I started using it to tweet. So true story. I think you can even go back and look at somebody's history. You'll see that I had like less than 100 followers and no tweets at all ever. So except for maybe an American Idol vote once. So I'm a little over 2 years now, I guess.
Are you still searching for for your niche, or you kind of already pretty firm on what you are and what your audience is?
Oh, well, if whenever I veer off and try to cover things that I don't typically cover on here, I have people in my comments telling me what I should stick to. So apparently, I have a very familiar brand that my audience is is used to, which I view my main focus points: human rights, informed consent, and free speech are my three main focus points. And then every now and then I'll veer off to cover basic constitutional rights like the Fourth Amendment and how Congress voted to extend the warrantless search and seizure of American citizens, which is completely outrageous. But they added a clause to that, by the way, that protects them from that search and seizure. So now the FBI can search your phone records, your email records, everything without having to get a warrant to do so, but they can't do it for members of Congress because they made sure to do it themselves. So I guess individual freedoms, informed consent, free speech, and human rights issues. People think that I just cover COVID, but it's not COVID that I'm covering. It's the human element to it. It's the human rights issues that are violated. It's the injustice done by censorship. COVID is just the time period that this happened in, but that's not my main focus. So,
I think
Is
her
it just
mic's
me or is
cutting
she
out.
lagging?
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's rugging. Yeah.
a few internet difficulties.
Could it be the indicator of a logical conclusion?
could what be the indicator of a logical conclusion?
No, you were rugging there, so we were thinking perhaps it could be a good time to wrap. But if you have
Yeah.
a minute,
True.
we do
There's
have.
one question here I can ask from the audience. Moitoy is writing, do you think written post commentary or journalism is a dying form since the big push is now toward video?
I think there's always going to be an audience for both. I think you're going to find people that like to sit down and read an article or a book, and there's going to be people that want to get their content through video. I think the best way to master that is going to be to diversify your content, and unless you just want to eliminate a part of your reach by not including written content. So I try to do both. Um, I it just depends on what the story is, but I enjoy video content, but it's also really nice to be able to just read an article and get your news delivered that way. It just depends on the story and depends on your mood, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think the way you were able to summarize it in one sentence, what your focus is, I think that's important. If you like as a creator, if you can't like summarize it, then perhaps you're still searching. A last known survivor.
Yeah, hi, Lindsay. I hope you can hear me. I hope my connection holds out. I wonder if, again, I hope you can hear me. I don't know if this is your area of expertise or not, but what are your thoughts on the complexity of the X code and the X algorithm? Because it really seems like every time they add a
Yeah, I
feature
can't
or
hear
they
anyone
fix
talk, so if
something.
you could tell me
Oh, can't hear me.
whenever he
Oh,
finishes, that'd be awesome.
okay. I guess
She was
like
just
if one of the hosts wants to repeat my question, would that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah, sure. So last night Survivor was asking, well, she was saying, okay, whether or not you're an expert in this, but would you be aware of any complexities
Okay,
within the
I don't know if you
Xcode?
guys can hear me.
Yes, but the code has been changing so much. So I've seen different things in the code, but I don't know if it's still in existence or not. But I can give you one example. One person I brought up earlier in the space, Brooke Jackson, who is the Pfizer whistleblower. Her account had special codes on it because she was a whistleblower in active litigation. So Twitter 1.0 made special code that they were not allowed to flag her tweets or suspend her or mark anything that she posted as misinformation because she was a active whistleblower, and which is wild. But a lot of the code by Twitter 1.0 was customized. Like they would go in and add keywords. I thought people were crazy when they would misspell words to try to get past the algorithm, until I saw that there are massive long lists of words that make your tweets go into a certain bubble or get suppressed, like in words and phrases. And there's a whole algorithm built around like different news stories. Like I know, like for example, Hunter Biden's laptop thing that was given like a misinformation label within the algorithm and would downplay reach based on that. But I know that the new engineers that Elon brought on were tasked with trying to clean a lot of that up. There's also tweet cred, which like if you tweet like all these words in this one list, then it hurts your tweet cred score. If you engage in circles of people that um, are flagged for misinformation, then you get put in the bubble with them and your reach gets suppressed. So there was a whole like world of words that were at play, and they also used AI to monitor and feed emails into people's inboxes every day at Twitter. Like Gil Roth would get daily AI updates with COVID misinformation, and some of it was like somebody would tweet something like, "I'm not getting vaccinated because I already have natural immunity." That was flagged as misinformation, and then all the tweets that had similar words or phrases with it were also flagged in that same thing. And I mean, just wild stuff. And I don't think people understand that AI has been used like this for a long time before Chat GPT ever existed. It was being used to surveil and monitor and either amplify or de-amplify what people were saying. So I hope that answers the question. I'm sorry, I don't know why I can only hear Adrian and Wiggle and Alex and Yvonne up here. It's kind of weird.
It's a Periscope issue. It's a Periscope issue. They have to really get rid of this thing, I swear to God. It's a bit of an issue to do that, though, because it sounds very simple. A lot of answers to these problems are very simple, but they are a shit ton of effort to implement. Like there's so much going on behind the scenes. Like even with the domain change, for instance, you have to imagine like a lot of people are saying, hey, why don't they just simply change it? Because well, it sounds simple in nature, but the actual execution is complicated as shit because you don't
Yeah,
want to break,
all
say,
these
for instance,
simplified.
existing links, you know?
Yes.
Because there was a time, I think, remember when live streams and spaces links were all broken and there was literally nothing, no UI accompanying them? Yeah, that was like an interest. I still collect a few of those. I still have a few bookmark posts of which things were broken just to that they still are broken. Just to kind of look at it, it's kind of funny. So yeah,
The
this
massive
tends to happen. Same
undertaking.
thing with the code.
I mean, the way it was built and the way it was coded, it's like I don't even know how you can describe it. Like having like 100 different ant farms, and you need to go in and remove like 5 ants from each farm to get rid of this thing. Like that's like the best way I can describe it, because it's not all in one place. It's all completely discombobulated and decentralized and not all in one place where you can just go hit a button and do undo, like amplify everybody. Like that just doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. More like I was gonna say something to Wiggle. More like it's code of spaghetti. But yeah. And it's not the fault of the people who work at X, of course. They just inherited the problem. Jesus Christ. So yeah, I think we'll still see a lot of issues, but I think for as long as we have spaces, everything is fine mostly because you can kind of work around a lot of the problems. And sure, spaces are a bit glitchy, but I mean, I think it's largely you can use it. You can use it for something that the spaces is unique. I think to this platform. It's just like it with like Discord voice channels. It's kind of similar, but in this case, everyone gets to see it from every echo chamber if they so happen to follow at least one person who is in attendance of that space. So I think it's a really good group and reach building tool. Spaces. It's just fantastic. Absolutely love it. It's one of the best places to be. And also the algorithm doesn't affect you as much here. So you can always have a space, they can always come in. It's completely separate. It's awesome. Even when I was shadow banned, I still had next level audience in spaces. And so that's just, yeah, very grateful for this feature. It's one of my favorite features. I think it is my favorite feature actually on X is spaces.
Andrew?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great space. I've been listening in and the background and grilling. So nice to meet you. Haven't followed you before, to be honest, but I am. I definitely hit the bell. Yeah, quite an interesting story. I'm enthralled. Yeah, my mind is blown this week. It's been quite a story. This whole dialogue tonight is just reinforces everything I stand for too, and everything I believe in. More transparency is needed.
Did you, Lindsay, did you hear what Andrew was saying? Or was that one also broken?
The way you just asked me if I heard what he said now has me worried because no, I didn't hear what he said, but it sounds like was it something crazy?
I can't hear me either.
I didn't really catch most of that, but yeah.
I did not hear it.
Oh my god.
I want to rewrite Android, the SDK for X to help
He wants to rewrite
Elon.
Android SDK, but that's not the issue. It's the Periscope issue. Either way, yeah. Do we have any more questions, or shall we proceed with winding down?
That was all from the audience questions in the comments.
Yeah, might be a good
Lindsay.
idea to rock it like this.
Yeah. Lindsay, I have a question. Do you know anyone else who is a creator on X who you may want to suggest to a show such as this?
Yeah, Western Lensman is a good creator on here. You should also interview. I'm gonna say it wrong. Dogecoin, Doja Dog. The one who's always making
Which
the
Doge?
beautiful graphic content. The one that
Oh, you mean Doge does?
CV.
Yeah, I just don't know how to really contact him, you know what I mean? Because, I'm more of like a meme to him. So if you could contact him, that'd be kind of awesome, but I don't think I can really reach out to him.
Yeah, you should. That's how you should do each one of these. Have them recommend the next one. They can pass the baton for you each time.
Precisely.
Um,
Yeah.
Let me think of some other names, and I can send them to you in a DM, and you can just let me know who you want to, if you want me to reach out to any of them and do it for your next space. I'll give
Sure,
you
that would be
a
perfect.
5-star review.
Awesome. Yeah, that would be cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's like an Uber driver rating,
It's true. It was one of my favorite things when I came down to Austin using the Uber drivers because you could sit in many different types of Teslas, and they were always really interesting people. So that's kind of cool. Nice conversations to be had.
I meet the most interesting people on the back of an Uber. It's always fascinating.
Yeah. Well, then I guess we could wrap it here. Thank you all for coming. This was absolutely amazing. Wiggle, of course, thanks for the questions. You're an amazing co-host. Yeah, Lindsay, of course, cool topics. And if you want to have a space on anything else and you'd want to have some assistance with perhaps, scheduling the space and, doing some of the moderation, Wiggle and I would be happy to help out. We always do this because we like to have spaces work in the way that they should, because they really should be used more by many more creators because they're awesome tools. But yeah, and also I'd like to thank many of the people on the panel, Yvonne, Alex, Blaise. You asked some amazing questions, and Blaise, by the way, is my media guy, so if you aren't already following him, make sure to follow him. And I'm pretty sure there aren't many people in here who aren't already following Lindsay, but if you haven't already, make sure to follow her, and Wiggle, of course, for being an amazing co-host. So thank you very much for coming.
And Adrian, before we get off, I just want to
Yes.
say thank you to the people that subscribed during the space today. I know Hollis is one, and
Oh, that's epic.
yeah, I'm grateful. So I appreciate y'all's support very, very much. And as soon as this wraps, I'll send the other people that did a DM to say thank you. So thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Awesome.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yes, thank y'all. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.